Hello everyone, and welcome to a concept video on a spaceship that I intend to bring into Kerbal Space Program, but would like some feedback on just in case I've messed something up. So I'll describe how it all works, and people can tell me if I've got something wrong, and then I'll bring it into Kerbal Space Program because that step does take some time. Actually, I find modeling things a lot easier, especially since the radiator panels were made by Pekka. So I just used those same panels that Pekka had made for a Starship depot. And, well, the concept is, it is, again, one of those futuristic ships where we have a nuclear reactor engine on the tail. Could be fission or fusion. And then we have the shadow shield, and everything has to fit within the shadow shield's protected volume, which is that cone. So everything has to fit within that cone because that's what's shielded by the shadow shield here, this block. And that is a combination of borated polymers, tungsten, and water. So we have that there, and it's going to be fairly heavy, and then everything has to fit inside. The trick of this is that we want to get as much radiator capacity as possible so that we can get a powerful engine on the tail. The more radiators we have, the more powerful the engine we can use. And then we can, use the propellant more efficiently. It's a direct trade-off between thrust and ISP. So the more power we have, the more that combination of thrust and ISP can be. So here, covered in radiators. So I've made the radiators sort of glow a little bit just so you can tell that they're radiators. This over here is the hydrogen tank. And then we have also hydrogen and oxygen for the RCS thrusters. The RCS blocks are right here. So they have quite a lot of little apertures, and I made sure that the ports would all be properly fed. So all the ability of this to turn is right back there. And then we have the radiator panels that are in this V shape that I sort of introduced in the video on new radiator configurations. And so there's the implementation of that. And we've got the base set and also an optional set. These are the optional ones right here. And they're optional so that we could remove this bit, and then we can have a second tank if we want to. So we can have a duplicate of this hydrogen tank here, and then we'll have more fuel, but we have less radiator capacity. So that means for the same thrust, we will be getting less ISP because we'll only be able to have a less powerful engine. Now, why do we have this shape with them folding out? First of all, we want them folding out because otherwise it's tough to launch them, right? And let's take a look at the alternative that you often see on these spaceships, which is just the flat triangle radiators. So like that. And again, like that, it fits within the shield volume. But overall, the radiator area that we have here is not as much as the folding version. And also at the maximum length here, we have about 26 meters. So we would have to make sure that this folded up, which, I can make that happen. And maybe we'd have to have it in two segments so that it could be launched on two separate trusses. Like we have with the radiators that I've proposed here. But, I feel like this is easier and it ends up having more area. So, yeah. And also I had the part by Pekka already animated, and the animation is the hard part, really. So we have that, and you'll note that the habitat, which is what this is, fits within the radiator thing. The radiators wouldn't turn, by the way. They'll stay flat, as the triangular ones would too. And so they'll be emitting in this plane and down here. And so it shouldn't be disturbing to have. There might be some stray heat, but that would just warm up the habitat a mild bit. We're not super high powered on the radiators at the moment, but we could hypothesize different arrangements. You can't really do it this way with the liquid droplet radiators. I'll have to think about exactly how I want to do the liquid droplet radiators, which can deal with higher heat than these can, but that'll be for another time. So we have this V shape, and it makes for an interesting vessel, and it looks like it should be heading this way, this side forward, but in fact this side is forward. But everything is sort of pointing towards the engine side being forward, but it's not. It's all reversed. So it's funny that way. And then things would ultimately be able to dock over there. In fact, they would definitely have to stay within this. This is sort of better than the other radiator, you know, the big radiator option I had, the giant radiator that I featured in another video, in that it's not as risky to dock into this as the other one. And also these wouldn't be as heavy. The fact that we are using the giant radiators as fairings in the video that I made before means that they're very, very heavy compared to these. These will be much lighter. Now we have some options here potentially. I've put these triangular radiators here, you'll note, to fill up the area. We could also have like conical toroidal tanks, toroidal because it'll have to wrap around the truss, or we could just remove the truss and just have a tank there. So we could use that as a conical tank, and then we could have a series of conical tanks there to carry whatever we need like that. Probably not extra propellant, but maybe some other supplies like oxygen or water, but maybe some propellant, who knows. And so we can fit them in like that. So that is an option instead of having those small radiator panels in the middle there. I still haven't figured out how to make radiators actually glow in Kerbal Space Program. I don't know why I'm having trouble with that, but there's not very good documentation. There's people who have talked about how to make engines glow, but the radiator option does not seem to come up. I don't know whether I should just leave these sort of tinted like this so that they seem to be radiating, if you will. Give them a different color than the rest of the ship, otherwise they'll be just gray again. And people don't seem to like gray, I've been told. So maybe I'll just leave them like this, and then they'll be clearly radiators like that. I think it's clear that they are radiating if they're looking like that. But yeah, I have to think about exactly how the hab is. I've got this sort of temporarily like that, but you know, some refinement could do. We have some windows up here. I definitely haven't worked on the IVA yet. But that's the idea. That's how it looks like. It would be launched with... The habitat would be launched in one piece. The fact that it's a cone means that it's easy to put on top of a rocket. But it is 12 meters in diameter, so that's a little bit rough. The hydrogen tank is also 12 meters in diameter, and it would be launched separately as well. And then we could probably launch the 2 segments of trusses, you know, the optional one and then the main bit, as a single launch, and then also have the shadow shield on that launch, because that launch, these won't be very heavy, so the shadow shield can go on that launch too. And then we'll have to probably have some robots to dock it all together, so we'll have some Canada tugs or something. But otherwise the only thing that has RCS is back here, so we need some tugs to do something. And then it'll all be put together. So that's the idea. 1, 2, 3 launches. And probably with Kasei Heavy, because otherwise 12 meters in diameter would be too much. But it could be worse. It could have been a wider thing. This is all made for that 12 meters, all made to fit in like that. And the habitat is beyond the 100 meter range from the shadow shield, as you can see. So that's all good. But, you know, ultimately, it still means that we have a limited amount of power over here, and I'm intending to be realistic about that. We're going to have a realistic setup here, and I'm going to try and do it conscientiously, and I'll come up with some other arrangements. But tell me, what do you think about this vessel? This is what it looks like. I don't know if that looks... actually, one thing I really want people to tell me is, does that look like something that's already been done before exactly? I mean, of course, we've had plenty of sci-fi vessels that have radiators and stuff like that, but this particular V arrangement, I'm wondering if that has been done before. And so please do tell me if something comes to mind. But I want to be unique, right? But otherwise, I think this is much nicer than some of the other vessels that I've been using with the far future engines, and will make for a nice addition to the fleet in Kerbal Space Program. Imagine this over the Sol system Earth, and I think it'll be very pretty once I've got it in the game. So with that, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do press like. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below, and I'll see you next time.